I know Carly is. Carly will be on screen. The others are, will they be here?
Please let's be quiet. Good morning. Welcome. Talk to her. Confirm that her audio is working properly, please.
Good morning, Professor Kali.
Good morning. Who is speaking to me?
LSA, representative of LSA. With your name, you need to confirm if your audio is working fine.
I can hear you, and I think you can hear me.
All right, that's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the sound check.
No. That's not this panel, that's the wrong panel. It's 11 o'clock. There's 3 other panels. So I'm the only one, me and Carly.
I can't see you.
You can hear me though.
I can.
Let me.
Where are you? Inside the cloud.
Can you see me now?
Yeah. You are so lucky. Nice to see you.
I guess they're gonna show me. I'm not a chair. No, I don't want that responsibility to I saw that.
Yeah, the chair is there. So we need to talk to the maybe I'm going to it becomes co-chair or something, so I can start running.
Okay.
Whenever she joins, it continues. Like we maximize all the time.
Okay.
But we're already.
Okay. Are we expecting her?
Yeah, we're expecting her. Either interested or online.
Oh, she's coming online.
She should come online or interested. We're not sure.
Who is it? For this?
So you guys decide who got them.
But you don't want to check. I should say.
No, you can tell. I'm starting.
So this is question.
So you can talk to
Carly.
you can talk to her.
Carly, do you want to share the panel?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Carly.
So can I ask, would it be possible for me to have a camera on Professor Brennan and a camera on the room, or can I only have one?
That's one time I hold down. You know,
Oh, I see. Wow.
I think it's better for the speaker view to be on. No, I'm not sure.
Maybe
For the online audience, it's better to see the speaker, but I think for the experience, it's better to also see the audience.
Okay. They can rotate.
So is it possible when it's Dr. Brennan's turn to turn the camera back to her? Could we do that?
Yes, it's possible. It is.
Thank you. Who's my driver?
Driver, is it a physical one, like the driver?
She's
I
using a
understand.
metaphor.
Okay.
The pilot of my camera. Thank you, sir.
Yes, all right.
So
Thank
if
you.
we keep the camera like this for now, and will
Okay.
you make me co-host, please?
Okay. Pick up.
And then I will also record from this side. And then I want to have a protocol for if the electricity goes. If the electricity or the Wi-Fi goes, don't worry about us. You carry on. The real thing is happening in the room.
Just me, okay.
Okay. So I think maybe what we'll do is have the people who are online first, since we are now connected. And then if the power and the electricity go, then you've got Professor Brennan in the room. And is there another one of the speakers there?
No, I'm the only one so far. Yeah.
Can I ask, is Dr. Elizabeth Olayiwola in the room?
No. For now, is she? She's not there. No.
Where is she?
She's here.
Dr. Olayiwola, if the power goes, would you take over and chair? And maybe, I know I haven't asked you to prepare, but would you say some words that you've heard me say in other places about mentoring?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, I can.
If they lose us. All right. Now I think
then I won't be alone.
say again.
I said, now I'm not alone at the front of the room.
Exactly.
I'm grateful.
All right. So now we have two plans. We have a plan for if we manage to stay together, and we have a plan for if the online people become disconnected. So shall I open and welcome everyone?
Are we ready?
Are we ready? Can we start?
Yes, well, we are ready.
Am I now a host? Okay, so I'm going to record from my side as well. So I'm recording to the cloud. Oh no, I can't. Could you please make me co-host, sir? Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to start recording now. Are we ready? I'm starting to record in 3, 2, 1. No, it won't let me record. Can you make me co-host?
No, we can't make you co-host, but you can record from where you are. In case we lose.
It will not allow me. It will not allow me.
Yeah. Just one host, please.
Just one host. Like it's allowed for just one host.
I see. Okay, in the previous session, I was allowed to co-host. Don't worry. Okay, then I can't record. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for choosing this session. The Lagos Studies Women's Mentoring Network is one of the most extraordinary initiatives. Lagos Studies has been a welcoming conference to women from the beginning. It's been a place where many women have brought small babies who cannot yet hold up their own heads. Is there a baby in the house today? No. Okay. So it's a conference that does what conferences elsewhere in the world are not able to do, and that is to really hold and support women scholars. Are we in the room where we had the workshop? I think so. If you look to your left, can you see the photographs on the wall?
Yes, yes.
Please tell me what you see. What do you see? There's only one woman, am I right?
Only one.
So this is the world into which we have been born, a world in which it is normative for men to be in positions of power. It's unusual for women to be in positions of power. And this is the world we are all going to change, and we are changing it day by day. And so this also is a feature of the past, of course. When I was growing up, when I was doing my PhD, there were not many women in my department. I'm sure it's the same for you in many departments. There were not many women who were able to provide any kind of guidance. And the important thing is that the idea of mentorship for women was not even imagined. It wasn't a concept. So what we decided to do with the Women's Mentoring Network is to think of what are the soft things, the unsaid things that make it still difficult for women to succeed in the academy. And that is what the aim is behind this network and behind these sessions. And by this, I'm not saying that all men succeed just by virtue of being men, of course not. But we know that there are extra barriers to women's success. And so we're going to start, and I'm going to ask first Professor Omotayo Oloruntuba Oju, who is online, to say a few words. Professor, please go ahead. If you can unmute yourself and make yourself visible, and please share with us your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Yes, greetings, everybody. I'm sorry my video is not working. I don't know why. I've been working on it even before the webinar started. So pardon me, I'll still keep taking a side look at it. I'm Omotayo Oloruntuba Oju. I lecture at Adekunle Ajasin University, Akungba Akoko. I'm not going to take much of your time. What I've prepared for today is titled Women Supporting Women, Women in Academia as Individuals in Communities. That's the title. And very quickly, the slogan, Women Supporting Women, has become popular in everyday interactions, almost to the point of a fad. While at this point, in 2024, we seem to have reached a point where, at least on a theoretical level, the idea that women should support their female peers is seen to be a noble ideal. Actual practices of care and collaboration are limited and sometimes superficial where they exist. In the course of my own career, I've heard and seen the opposite tendency the likelihood that women will not get along, will compete with each other, and in the worst case scenarios, actively sabotage one another. My short submission will therefore focus on understanding what support networks actually mean in the context of women's solidarities in general, some of the factors that hinder effective network building, and models for forging these networks under which women can thrive together. Now I move to challenges of building networks and the question of solidarity. To think about building support networks with other female scholars, we must first grapple with the broader age-old question of solidarity and understand what solidarities mean and how to aspire to them in the context of intellectual networks as women. Can women aspire to collaborative belonging in the academia? This is a critical question that I hope we'll be able to answer today. Does the fact of being a woman offer sufficient commonality to justify solidarity networks amongst female scholars? What are some of the challenges that may emanate from this approach to building support networks? In her response to the sisterhood model of solidarity in the 80s, which was being promoted by bourgeois, often white women who took the idea of the shared victimhood of women as the premise of solidarity, Bell Hooks addresses some of these questions and argues that solidarities must be built on shared political commitment to counter sexism and the ways it has been internalized themselves. Solidarities are not simply built on inherently shared attributes, but on experientially affirmed points of ideological commitment. The point here is that the call to build networks amongst women is not because we share a gendered type that is seen to be marginal to a dominant other. Oyewumi Oyeronke, Kimberly Crenshaw, and other scholars have engaged with the fictions of existentialized gender, and the intersections of oppression show that women cannot be assumed as gender as an undifferentiated category. Instead, our solidarities should consist in recognizing the concrete problems that patriarchal norms and institutions have generated and coming together to address these problems by fostering an environment where women can collaborate without feeling the pressures of cutthroat competition. And this is very important, especially in Nigeria, where I come from. We run a publish or perish system where publications are emphasized over and above even teaching. Teaching counts for very little, whereas publications carry the highest percentage. So, like I said, we need, especially for the young female researchers, we need to empower them, to assist them to understand the dynamics and be able to work within these dynamics. As well, who quotes from Toni Morrison's 1979 lecture at Barnard, I quote, "I am alarmed by the violence that women do each other. Professional violence, competitive violence, emotional violence. I'm alarmed by the willingness of women to enslave other women. I'm alarmed by a growing absence of decency on the killing floor of professional women's world." Again, I want to speak to this because where I come from, we really don't even have a system of mentoring. I'm sure many of the people in the audience would attest to this. We don't seem to have a culture of mentoring. And of course, it's not okay for the younger researchers. So we need to build a culture of mentoring, and it is both ways. The mentees, the younger ones, could also, without crossing lines, should also try to reach out as much as possible. They should identify senior researchers that are sufficiently up and doing and approachable, and try to collaborate with them, try to interact with them, and so on and so forth. I recall that just about a few weeks ago, a younger female colleague in my institution reached out to me to complain about some form of intimidation by her male head of department. And of course, we immediately intervened and sorted the matter out. So we expect more of this if we're going to be serious about mentoring. While the semantic choices of Morrison here are suggestive in that they point at the women as the doers of these forms of violence, I'm more interested in the structural questions that prefigure or at least constrain what women do. While there have been significant breakthroughs in recent years in terms of the entry of women into academia, women are still a professional minority within many academic institutions, marginal in terms of their representation in senior positions, and marginal in terms of being more prone to career breaks and gaps in the process of navigating work-life balance. And again, I'm going to use the example of Nigeria here. For most courses that we run in our universities, female students are more, interestingly. But you'll find that the ratio of female lecturers to male is so low. In actual fact, you will find the absence of female, you may find the absence of female lecturers in some departments, which is not good enough. And where you have female students, there are few compared to male lecturers. So this gap also needs to be bridged if we are serious about mentoring. A key contributing factor to the form of competition that Toni Morrison describes, I would argue, is a result of the historical exclusions women have faced in academia that have made it difficult for women to take space without feeling threatened by others. Often, it is the very pressures of limited opportunities in spaces of cutthroat competition that individualized knowledge production, which generates anxieties that women often react to. So I think as a first step and an ideological commitment, we must all be steadfast in pushing for equal access for women in the advancement of academic careers. Next, I'll soon round up building networks. There are two important skills to consider when it comes to support network building, the institutional and individual skills. At the institutional level, it is key that adequate and effective infrastructure is set up, online forums, extensive scholarship databases, networking events, etc., to foster such networks. These networks could be designed in terms of intellectual convergences, such as interdisciplinary thematic clusters, where research interests are used to organize female scholars into groups where they can share resources and ideas in their related thematic field. And I want to thank the LSA for this conference, for this initiative, because this is one forum where this is possible in Nigeria. And most of the way we run our university system here, it's not really easy to do the kind of thing I'm advocating for here. The networks could also be social support networks through which women can come together to discuss issues of life-work balance, particularly in the context of motherhood and other issues around professionalism, workplace, harassment, etc. On the individual scale, I would call on women at any level of their academic careers to actively seek out other female scholars who can support them and whom they can support. With digital tools at our disposal, there is increasingly an opportunity to access one another through a variety of platforms. And I would suggest that we reach out to one another with a sense of responsibility and generosity. Responsibility would be knowing how moderately and politely to seek help from other scholars without being overbearing. Generosity would be openness to collaborations and with other scholars. In this sense, collaborations could be in the context of the co-production of knowledge, or even in a simpler sense of forming accountability partnerships in which scholars can check in with each other about their progresses and setbacks. The idea of these support groups is not to essentialize women or create enclaves of female scholarship. Women should still be actively involved in broader networks within and beyond their institutions. They should also not shy away from seeking mentorship from male senior colleagues, and they should actively be involved in the mentorship of their male junior colleagues. Rather, the point of focusing on women's support networks and broader ideals of solidarity is to underscore the need for social and material infrastructure to deal with the unique challenges that women tend to face in academia, and to begin to normalize the forms of community building that resist the pressures of cutthroat competition inherent in the neoliberal needs of higher institutions today. I will end by drawing on the idea of individuals in communities, quote and unquote, proposed by feminist scholar Awino Okech. Under this model, we are called to consider support networks as collaborative spaces in which individuals are fairly compensated and acknowledged for their contributions to collective knowledge production. She notes, and I quote further, thinking about individuals in communities can open dialogue about solidarity in action in such an environment. Practices such as collaborative writing workshops, pedagogic planning meetings, group teaching, and rethinking the nature of assignments become the norm. These practices not only shift the experience of the classroom and redistribute labor, but they also move solidarity from sympathy without action to tangible action that supports Black female colleagues. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you for your words. Can I just make sure both of those screens are you? Is that right? That's not, there's not another speaker online. One is voice and one is image. Are both of those screens yours? I think so.
Yes, that's right, Carly.
Thank you very much. Shall we, since the network is good and connectivity is good, shall I go ahead?
Yes, yes.
And then, okay, so my name, for those of you who've not met me yet, I see many familiar faces in the audience, but there are some who have not met me. My name is Dr. Carly Kutsia, and I have been involved in Lagos Studies Association from its second conference onwards. And it is the work of my life. It is the most joyful and the most meaningful work that I have ever done in my life, because of the community of scholars I meet and because of the way Lagos Studies Association supports young scholars, and in particular, young women scholars. I was hoping there'd be a baby in the house today, because that always exemplifies for me what Lagos Studies is about. So I spoke on this panel last year, and I don't know if some of you heard me last year. So I decided not to repeat what I said last year, but to think, what have I learned during the course of this year that is new and fresh? And in fact, I realized quite a lot has happened for me in terms of how I think about mentoring. I think about mentoring as a contract between the mentor and the mentee. It is not something that one can demand from someone. You cannot go up to someone and say, I want you to be my mentor. We cannot take mentorship from people. It is like any other love relationship. It is something that develops through mutual respect and with appropriate boundaries. So a formal mentorship relationship is something very special. I've never had one in my life. I've never received that kind of mentorship, a loving, ongoing investment in me. But what I'm going to talk to you about is the kinds of connections of which I have many, which is a different kind of mentorship. Because mentorship has many forms, and some of them happen without the mentor even knowing that they have mentored us. Do you see what I'm saying? That there's a particular model of mentorship, which is the older person, the younger person. The older person pours knowledge and mentorship into the younger person. But I think mentorship is much more complicated than that and has many different forms. What I mean is that one can learn a great deal from observing and watching what people do. And at Lagos Studies Association, you will see many examples of successful scholars behaving with dignity and humility that you can watch, and you can copy what they do. You can adopt, you can steal mentorship from them just by watching them and seeing how they operate. And I don't just mean women, male scholars as well. I have learned more from my juniors than I've learned from my seniors. I have been mentored in that sense by young people in my life who have taught me skills, who have taught me ways of professionalizing myself, who have taught me to enter worlds that I myself was not part of. So mentorship happens up and down the family tree. Young people can also mentor older people. I have learned how to speak at conferences and to be professional by watching my age mates. For example, there's one person who's my age from whom I have learned the most in the world. She's also one of my closest friends. But at conferences, I've seen her operate, and that is Professor Moradewin Adejunmobi. Whatever she does has the highest professional standard. I watch her and I model myself on her behavior. She's not my mentor, but I am mentored by her by following her example, seeing how she operates in public spaces. I've also learned a great deal about protocol from Lagos Studies Association. I'm the president of my own academic association now. And for my formulas and for how I operate, I look at Professor Said and I think I'm going to do it like that. He's provided me with an example on which I can shape myself. So I've never said to Professor Said Aderinto, you are my mentor. He will probably be quite embarrassed, but I learn from watching him and shape myself, professionalize myself by watching him. As women scholars, but also as men, I see also Professor Said grappling with the same things. We have to set the dial, you know, like when you tune a radio, you have to tune it to be at the right professional setting. You have to be professional. You will see in my interactions on these panels, I address people formally. I hold the setting as a formal setting. We're not going to sort of jive and joke. I keep things very formal. When we get outside the room, we can jive and joke. But in here, I keep it very formal. But in my interactions, I also keep things very friendly. So it's that mixture of formality and warmth that I think is a very professional persona. And you will see people at various levels of warmth and professionalism, and you decide where you want to set yourself. I think as women, it's always better to be more formal than is necessary. You can always tone it down, but I think it's good to come in at a formal level. So if you permit me, I'm going to tell you a story now about a 21-year-old woman who is my daughter and who started in a new job in which she did not receive proper training. And for her first assessment, she got a very bad assessment, very bad. She was criticized for how she sits. She was criticized for what she wears. She was criticized for her tone in meetings. She was criticized for her email, how she writes emails. And she came home sobbing, saying, I don't know what I've done wrong. And she and I sat down and went through the assessment, and I talked her through all the ways in which she can train herself by watching her colleagues. No one has told her she has to sit upright. But I said to her, look around the room. See how the other people sit on their chairs. Don't slump if they don't slump. If you see them sit upright, sit upright. These look like trivial things, but for her, they created an unprofessional, even though she's good at the job, she was unprofessional in her presentation. I looked at the emails that they criticized, and it terrified me because they were terrible. They were saying, hi, nice to hear from you. Thank you, the report was great. Completely inappropriate. So what I instructed her to do is to look at the emails by her superiors and to see and I gave her examples of emails I have written. This is what a formal email looks like. This is what a professional email looks like. So what I was teaching my daughter is that there's a way to access the hidden curriculum. There is a curriculum. Find it. There is a set of guidelines. Find it for yourself. Like you here in this room, you can see senior scholars, see how they hold themselves, decide which ones you like what they do, style yourself on that. Mentorship can take many forms. You know, you can have, if you're lucky, you will have a PhD supervisor. Some people are very lucky. They have a supervisor who shapes them, who mentors them, who leads them into the world. Most of us are not lucky that way. More often, we have to do it ourselves. Learn to access the hidden curriculum. Learn to find places where we can shape ourselves, where we can professionalize ourselves. Just by watching, by being alert, by observing, and then by practicing the ways that you see people behave that you would like to mimic and that you would like to copy. So in fact, what I'm saying is, don't wait for a mentor to cross your path. Go and steal what you want. Observe and just shape yourself in response to the scholars around you that you admire. Make yourself into the person that you want to be. You can do it. I'm going to stop there and hand the room back to the people on the ground. And now probably my camera pilot, probably now you want to turn the camera to the speaker's table, please. Thank you.
Should I start? Okay. All right. So thank you, Professor Kutsi and Professor Oloruntayo-Oju, for those excellent comments. I'm Professor Vicki Brennan from the University of Vermont, and I'm privileged to have two of my mentees here today. Yes, thank you. It's actually really interesting that Professor Kutsi and I did not plan this, but my comments are also about the practice of mentorship and some practical advice about what it is to be a mentor and what it is to be a mentee. And I also just want to say in response to what you just said, I don't know if you remember, Prof, but I actually came up to you at LSA in 2018 and said, I want to do what you do. And whether I've been stealing from you or following you, I see you as one of the models that I aspire towards in terms of my own research. So, yeah, so I have my comments will be very short, but I have 3 points that I want to make about mentorship as a practice. And the first is to just note the importance of mentoring for women academics. As we just noted, that there's not often many opportunities for women to receive the kind of mentorship that allows them access to what was just called the hidden curriculum. But that's really important, but also the importance of having a mentor for the purposes of building solidarity and community, as Prof. Oloruntayo pointed out, right? So both of those things are really important, right? You need your gang, right? You need your no committee who will help you respond to all of those requests for your time and labor that is placing a burden on you. You need your no committee that you can go to say, yeah, you can say no to that one, and it's really okay. And people aren't going to think you're lazy or you're not a good person. And then they can help you frame your no in a way that is professional and acceptable, right? So I think it's really important for women academics in particular to have mentors and to be mentors for others. Because we're all navigating an environment that's structured by patriarchy, right? We see the photos on the wall, and the institutions and procedures of the university are shaped by sexism and misogyny. And so we have to insert ourselves into that. And it doesn't mean like we have to completely approach it as a battleground or a site of warfare, but we have to recognize the burdens, the institutional burdens that are in our way as we try to navigate this space. Okay, so that's my first point. The second point I want to make, which I think adds to what Prof. Kutsi said about observation, I actually think that the mentor-mentee relationship is one that should be premised on listening. I think I want to stress that this relationship is one that's primarily shaped by active and empathetic listening. The point is to allow the mentee to reflect on and situate their experiences, to help them articulate their career goals, and to work with them towards tangible ways to achieve them. Right. So it's not, I mean, it's not to say that I don't think observation as described earlier is important. I think listening supplements that observation. Right. And so it's about both asking questions without dictating the outcome or the answer, right? The answer shouldn't be like, this is what you should do, but it could be, you could do this or you could do this. If you do this, then this, if you do that, then that. And that's the kind of reciprocity of a relationality that comes out of the listening relationship, right? So mentorship then isn't just about advice based on what the mentor has done or would do, but instead helps the mentee navigate academia by focusing on their intuition, values, goals, and life circumstances. And I think that that's something, I mean, I think in some ways, Nigerian culture actually works against that because the senior-junior structure is so powerful. But I think it's one that actually helps both the mentor and the mentee to really fill in the diversity of the ways to be an academic in this space, right? If we can really listen to each other and allow the junior person in this relationship that's heavily structured by power to take agency for their choices, their values, their own life circumstances, and to center on those. All right, so that's my second point, is listening. And then my third point I want to make about mentoring and about being a mentor as well as being a mentee, and I hope my mentees are listening very well. I can see. Yes.
Taking notes.
Yes, okay, I've checked. So the point then isn't to tell the mentee what to do, but ask them questions that help guide them to their own solutions, right? And that's what's going to make them a strong, successful, independent scholar who can then go on to mentor others, right? Without just imposing it. So you're not just the cookie cutter of your advisor or your mentor, but you become your own person. You're fully, you're full in your full, sorry, I got stuck, in your full academic role. All right. The best mentors help junior scholars to critically reflect on what is working, on what isn't, and what they really want. And if your mentor isn't necessarily engaging this, you might try to like push them in this direction to say, well, I understand that this is how you did it, but I'm wondering if I take this other path, like maybe I don't take the, pursue a fellowship outside of the country because my young children are here, and instead I pursue this fellowship, I might see a way for me to succeed in this other kind of way, right? And then what would that happen? The mentee is there to be a sounding board, right? To really listen to you and understand your perspective. And so this will empower all of us, mentee and mentor, to make these decisions, to find solutions on our own, right? So it's not then every time you face a crisis or struggle, you have to run to your mentor for help, because you will become the person who can make the decisions for yourself, right? Okay, so just some brief remarks to conclude. I think that this emphasis I'm placing on agency and empowerment is especially important for women, because it allows us to continue to break with the systems that hold us back, right? We can't just conform ourselves to the systems in the ways that, okay. We can't just, if we conform to the systems that are putting obstacles in our way, then the obstacles are going to be there for the next generation, right? And so if we don't conform ourselves to that, if we seize that agency and empowerment, that means that we make systems that are better for not just the next generation of women, but for all scholars coming up, right? And so I think this is especially important, as I mentioned, because of the sort of power dynamics that impact the mentor-mentee relationships, right? That power dynamic has to be accounted for in order to dismantle these other systems of inequality, right? We have to recognize that the mentor's experience of navigating the PhD, or working with a supervisor, or having children while on the tenure track, or not being able to have children while on the tenure track, or facing an extra burden of service obligations because, well, the women take better notes, so that's why you should take the notes in the meeting, right? Instead, that's a good time to say, maybe we should start recording all our meetings instead of having somebody take notes, right? That's a shift in practice that undoes that kind of undue burden that affects only certain members of a community. Right, so I think that those are I'll conclude my comments there. I actually wanted to just note that I think one of the things that I actually would like to see on these panels, and maybe next year we can put it in, is I wonder if it can be more driven from you as opposed to from the panel, right? That we instead have a conversation so that the mentors can respond to what is actually happening on the ground with the mentees. Right, so that would be my suggestion for the next year.
Thank you very much, Professor Brennan. So I actually have an idea. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Professor Brennan. I wonder if this is an ideal opportunity to turn to a person from what Professor Said Aderinto and I call the sandwich generation. So the sandwich generation they are people like Dr. Olayiwola who have received mentorship, but are now moving into leadership roles. And it's a tricky place. Last year, Dr. Olayiwola said to me, "I'm not quite sure where I belong. Am I a mentee or am I a mentor? What am I?" And so I wonder, this is maybe a very good place then to hinge into the room. Dr. Olayiwola, if you would be willing, I know you didn't prepare, but I also know how good you are on your feet.
Thank you very much, Professor Kotia. I've practiced a lot growing up in Pentecostal church. I think I have some charisma, so I would just, I'll just display some. Yes, I didn't know we were the sandwich generation, but it's good to have a label to what you are. So now I can operate from that. I'd like to start by speaking from my early experience here at LSA. 2019, I was privileged to be selected among the mentees, and so I've benefited from that kind of mentorship, even from LSA here. And so now I am finding my voice. And I know last year, yes, I was confused. I wasn't sure. What am I? I know I have my mentors and that I've been benefiting from, but I also now realize that I have other people looking up to me for things. And I felt a little bit overwhelmed last year because I felt like, no, I still have my life work ahead of me. I cannot take the burden of mentoring somebody. But I'm glad that the chair spoke to mentorship by observation. Yeah, that's so, yes. So that could be less relieving for people that like Majida that want to suffocate me. I'm not that, I'm not there yet, but yes. So I understand that mentorship is important. I'm thinking about listening, but in that, what I have to say right now is about the relationship. I've noticed that as a mentee, I was privileged to follow instruction, listen a lot, so that I don't come across as asking same question. When you mentioned the point about Professor Vicky about listening, it was key for me because I've realized now that people don't listen. People are desperate, as I'm sorry to say, but as mentees, some people are just desperate. They just want to be like the mentor. And so they kind of feel like there's something like an injection that can be injected into you, and then you become that person. So you hear somebody say, you've given a speech from your heart about how to do something, like, oh, you have to read a lot, you have to do some hours of reading, and then tomorrow this person is sending you the same message of how can I get a postdoc? What I want is not reading. How can I get a postdoc? You're like, oh God, are you listening? Are you listening to me? But I understand that that state of mind of wanting to become. You're aware that there are pressures, you want to become this person, but one really have to listen, and then it takes time. It takes time. I am a work in progress, and I'm glad that each year I see that I'm taking a new level of responsibility. And for me, I see that as a journey. So it's still a continuing journey. So I would just like to encourage mentees in the room that is a journey. If you're in this room, you definitely will get there. You have started. I was in this room 2019, and and it's been a journey for me, and I'm getting better at it. So shall I pause?
Thank you.
Can I maybe just say one thing before we hand over to the room? Most mentors mentor in the time when they're meant to be relaxing and resting. So I am a mentor with 3 day jobs and a journal that I edit. When I mentor you, I have to do it between the hours of 7 and 8, or between the hours of 4 and 7 in the morning. Those are the hours. Dr. Olayiwola will be able to testify to that. It's very time consuming. And so one has to pace yourself to do your own jobs, to put food on the table, and then to give of what is left. I will shut up now. And maybe Dr. Brennan, can you switch things, and can the two of you lead conversation with
Yes.
the group?
Yes, we actually have a question here that I hope the two profs on screen and the two profs in the room might be able to help. And maybe some of you out there, actually, I think this question is one we should have. It might be worth having more of a group conversation about. So the question is, it says, please speak about sexual harassment and tips to deal with it because it is very prevalent and most people don't even know when it happens to them. And I think that this is an excellent question. I think this is, I mean, talk about pragmatic, right? This is getting to the nitty gritty of one of the most pronounced challenges that women face as an academic. And I mean, I especially like the last part of this question because we don't always know when it's happening, right? Are we being groomed through some kind of flattery on the part of the senior prof? Not flattery like he's buying you drinks and he's plying you with food and things like, you know, he brings you a gift, but flattery like he's encouraging you to participate in things, he's flattering your scholarship, and then it turns out that he was only doing it because maybe he wanted to, or maybe he's doing it both because he loves your mind and your body, I don't know, right? And I think that that's what's really hard. I think that's a hard thing to parse. And I also want to, like, I want to hear from others, but the other thing I want to say is that it's also really a shame that this is a conversation we have in a room that's filled with majority women, when it's actually the men who need to recognize when their behavior is veering towards these unacceptable territories, right? They shouldn't be looking at their grad students or junior scholars as, you know, sort of their opportunities for a new whatever they want to have with it, you know? And so I think that that's, you know, I mean, obviously we can learn to protect ourselves and to recognize what's happening to us. But I also think that we need to make sure that more men are part of these conversations so that they stop doing it. So do you have any thoughts on this?
Yes, I'd like to share a personal experience, something that happened to me some years ago. I was still on my PhD. And so I think that was 2012, 13. So one of my professors who had taught me at undergraduate and also master's level, so he told me from the onset I wanted to be a lecturer. So he understood that, and he said, your type should be in the classroom. So I was currently unemployed at the moment, and I was happy that I'm getting that kind of attention because he's elderly. So I've always looked at him like, you know, like a father figure. I would not even think of him in that way. And so he was like, yes, you should, you're smart, you should be in the classroom. And then the next thing he's telling me, I'm going on a weekend. I came for a conference, academic conference, and he's saying, can we go on this weekend trip? And, you know, I got confused. How did we get here? Of course, I just said no. So and then, you know, he wasn't remorseful. He went ahead to say something like, oh, you're still the same. I thought you'd have changed. So it's all, and there's usually the collaboration, like a gang up. And so, and another lecturer who was then a senior lecturer too, in another situation, same conference, another scene, told me that, you see, he said, do you need a job? I said, talk to this professor. That is the other professor that had said we should go on a weekend. And I said, I don't know, I've told him. And I said, okay, let me tell you a story. You see, I used to have this niece that would come to my house for holidays. So because he won't do house choice, and so I'll be quiet. And so when he wants to leave too, I would not give him money. You know, so it's just playing back and forth with one's mind. So I understand that this is real. So at that point, what should I call that? You know, he's not physically assaulted me, but you know, so I understand that question when you say you don't even know if you are being harassed or not. But of course, I understood well enough to understand that I'm not going to get my promotion based on that. So I just kept on working, taking my time to grow, and eventually I got an appointment, you know, without having to go on a weekend with anybody. Then the story has a part two. Then he called me years after. And of course, I don't have his number saved. And he said, "This is your mentor." And called his name. I'm like, wow, so much for mentorship.
Yeah.
So while I do not readily have answers to probably the standard procedure of how to register something like this that is not a physical assault, but you already feel insulted, like objectified. But I would say it's just good to hold your head high, like know what you want, and do not consent. It's time you will get there. If you are bright, you are bright. Don't let anybody put you down. You know, for the other male he would mentor, he would ask them to do extra things for him, you know, but nothing sexually demanding. So the other male mentees, you know, sometimes get it easier because all they have to do, probably they'll do some extra stuff, you know, maybe do some choice for him, but nobody will be asking you to go spend the weekend. So I acknowledge that it's tough for women, but please, let's hold our own, you know, just own up to who you want to be.
Do any of the other panelists want to speak to the session? Thank you for sharing. Do any of the other panelists want to speak, or does anyone else in the room? Okay. Oh, wait. Okay, from the room, yes. Okay, wait, can I choose 3? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then we'll do another round.
Which one?
So I want to comment on the issue of sexual harassment, which might be overt or covert. The major issue we have when it comes to sexual harassment is, at times, these people are people that we know and we respect. One thing that I've adopted as an individual is never to let down my guard. I do not trust anybody, not even my dad. Yes, is that bad? Yes, I do not. As far as you are somebody from the opposite sex, I do not trust you. Yes, you are a suspect. To me, that is how I have guided myself. And it's because of the experiences that I have had. I had a conversation with a lady yesterday, and she was saying, "Oh, you seem to know everybody. Why is it that you don't get close?" And I said, I have studied the trajectories, the patterns of relationship that I have had with people of the opposite sex. I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, I want to do this, this, this." But I've also had people who will not say, but their actions, "I want something done," and they say, "Oh, please come close. Let me show you how to do it." In the process of showing how to do it, you want to lean on my lap. So these are covert ways of trying to kind of sexually harass somebody. And one way I would advise females to avoid this is never be desperate for anything. Because there are times that you do not have all you need. I used to be a model in Lagos, and there's a particular brand that once I mentioned, if you've been in the modern industry, they will tell you, "Oh, I know this brand that you're talking about." The man will come to you and say, "Okay, I think you have everything that I need for my brand." The next thing he calls you and say, "What kind of car do you drive?" He's doing an assessment of who you are in order to know how to start the process of harassment. By the time he notices that, okay, you're desperate for that particular opportunity, maybe because you don't have money. First and foremost, I remember when I went to his office, the first thing he asked me was, "What car do you drive?" And I said, "Sir, I do not have a car." "Oh, what do you do? What does your parents, like, what do they do?" He wanted to do that assessment in order to know where to come in. So as an individual, I knew that I wasn't desperate. Yeah, I was desperate somehow because I was hungry, but I had the necessary family support. I mean, if I'm hungry, I might not have money, but if I have food, I do not need to do anything beyond. I don't need to go extra mile. So I feel that desperation, no matter, yes, you want to have a PhD, put it at the back of your mind that you can also fuck this PhD.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes, you need this PhD as much as you need your sanity.
Yeah.
So you don't need to compromise yourself because you need to have a PhD. So desperation, avoid desperation.
Can I just? I know we have our brothers in the back, and I just want to say the point isn't for you to think that we're abusing you. The point is to say, look how your fellow men's behavior has made women feel, right? That she's afraid, she's hesitant around her own father. And so that's the kind of cultural shift that has to happen so that then you, men and women, can interact equally. So thank you for the comment. So I had my 4, the next is in the second row. And then where's the third? Third is there. And the 4th is there. Now come to him.
Okay, thanks for this opportunity. My name is Esther Wandmodi, and I would say I've had trajectory of sexual harassment from my undergraduate days down to my master's day, and then to the PhD as I started here. And when I could not take it, just as you said, I fucked the PhD here and started it over somewhere else. So I wouldn't want to go into details, but it's really a bad culture. I don't know what to say, where that you are bright, you are a prey. You are beautiful, you are a prey. You have shape. Let me say you have the you are well shaped. You are a target. So, and I don't know. And maybe if you are ugly, you are also a target because you you are extremely intelligent. Sorry. Sorry. So, you are very intelligent. You are open to being sexualized. Your intelligence become something that attracts senior colleagues or lecturers. So you find it difficult. Even if you try to hide yourself, your results would show. And then people start looking for who is this name, and you are invited. And sometimes it is so crazy. I was speaking to a senior here yesterday about my experience somewhere during my master's. Yeah, that it was so crazy that when I come into class, I could be a point of discussion. And they say, okay, maybe she's just coming in from somewhere, she's reeking of sex or something like that. And I'll be like, wow. And you would hear like, don't mind the way she looks like a Christian. She's not that. Look at her shape now and all that. During my defense, I had the worst experience that I cried because of the nature of my research. I'm a feminist, yeah, African feminist, and most of my research from undergraduate days has been around interrogating the experiences of African women. And you have a panel where most of them are anti-feminist. So you are doing something that's telling you, so what do you mean? So you mean that woman in that novel that was raped, she didn't call for it? Most of you, and you know those kind of suggestive statements, you are living a viva crying. And you get into the PhD, the experience continues. So even when you are married, being married does not have anything to do with, it does not stop it. It was so crazy. So I would advocate for a women's support network. It's very necessary because sometimes it's very difficult to report these instances to the higher bodies in the institution, because some of the people you are reporting, they are also involved or they are complicit. They are complicit to some of these things. So you are reporting a senior professor to another senior professor who they meet at the staff club or the sports center. What would happen? Nothing happens. But if there is a strong female support network, that would take it up, even with the with legal processes. So women would not feel afraid if that network is strong enough. So we bypass the university. We meet that network and we discuss this. We are not ashamed to say this is what we have experienced. And when we try to contact, just so for protocol purposes, and we see that nothing is going forward, we take it up. So if one woman gets justice, another woman would not be afraid to say something. So from that, I just think something better would happen. Thank you.
This again emphasizes the importance of women's solidarity networks. You need to have someone who will both, you can tell this experience to, who won't say, oh, did you ask for it? But who says, okay, this is not okay. And what can we do about it? And it might be you don't do anything, you just don't go along with that anymore, but at least you have someone who supports you instead of someone who contributes to the comments about you in the classroom. Okay, so the next hand was in the red shirt. Yeah. Put your hand up. Yes.
Okay, good morning. My name is Elizabeth. First, I want to ask a rhetorical question. Would it be wrong to say that a lot of sexual predators are all cloaked as male lecturers? I know I'm asking this question because cloaked as lecturers, you know, the way some people cloak themselves in these religious habit, but deep down they are predators preying on kids. Is it possible to say, would it be wrong to infer that some sexual predators are cloaked in the cloak of lecturers, because they now see this as a veritable ground, the school as a veritable ground to hunt for women?
I'd like to hear from you because I think my perspective might be different.
I'm not done. Okay, so I would like to just continue. I asked the question because almost everyone is sharing the same experience. And if you look at the recent news all over the net, you hear people talking about a lecturer that raped so and so women way in Uniben, Unical, different places. So what's happening? Maybe we should begin to vet these men before they give them jobs. And also maybe, and then, sorry, if I may continue. Like I said, it's a rhetorical question. I already have an answer for myself. Okay, so now what I want to say is this. Okay, I also have my own little experience. I've always wanted to lecture. I'm not going to name the school where I'm from because of the sensitivity of what I want to say. I left school my first degree was in 2005. I left as the best graduating student. And there's a system there where if you're the best graduating student, you are automatically given a job. All my friends who were in different departments who left with good grades as best graduating, they are all there doing they can as lecturers. I never got the opportunity, despite every single letter of application I wrote. It was my dream to lecture there. And then I noticed this chauvinism and sexism is a department full of men. Up until I was leaving, that in 2006 was the first they ever hired a female lecturer. As I'm talking to you, see the 2 female lecturers that are still there, which begs the question, because I've seen one of the lecturers is my mentor. The reality here is not the reality there, because even as my mentor, she's still struggling against the tide of male chauvinism and sexism. The nasty comments they make in front of her and imply and say, oh, maybe that is why she's not married. Oh, maybe that she doesn't have kids. Or this. So it's a different reality. So we also need to even maybe encourage our mentors, because sometimes we think they're distracted. Beyond their work, they also have personal challenges where they work. Now, I did my second degree there. I was also the best graduating student. And yet, I still didn't get the job. 2 years ago, a friend of mine who is current HOD in another department called me and said she was advocating for me with one of my former lecturers who has been HOD several years over. And the man told her to shut up and mind her business, because when it comes to me, it's not going to happen. This person she's talking about prepositioned me when I was an undergraduate and told me, I'm newly single. You are single. Let's meet and mingle. You know that? Yeah, she told me that. I'm telling you, no. Hold on, please. He told me that as please let me just finish. He told I know
I wish we could just have the whole day. Everybody I think commenters need to keep their comments like this brief.
okay. Okay. Okay, so let me just round up. So I'll just round up with this. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of us here with our dreams and visions. And some people are just sitting steady on it because you refuse to budge on a preposition they made while you were an undergraduate. I've moved on. I have other things I'm doing and achieving. Like I said, told somebody yesterday, LSA last year was the first I attended here, and it opened my eyes and broadened my horizon so they can stay where they are while I'm growing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Temitayo Mibule. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Temitayo Mibule, and I'm from Obafemi Awolowo University. I'm so interested in this topic because it has direct relationship with me. Women in academia, people, culture, and institution in motion. I'm so glad that this is an opportunity to share this particular area of interest with you. When we talk about women, before I move on, let me quickly contribute to the similar stories that have been told. It is so unfortunate that most of these men that we see in today's society are being raised by us, the mothers. So unfortunate. We raise heel breed men and we transfer it to our properly raised female children as husbands. Most of us here, if head count have been taken, we are mostly mothers. So that will take me to the main discussion I have, talking about women in academia. As a woman, and you are in academics, the culture, the societal expectation is that you're going to raise a family along the line. So while raising a family, what kind of children are you raising? It is important. Talking about mentorship by observation. In education curriculum and from education philosophers, it has been established that children, they learn most by modeling. What they see you do repeatedly, they see their father do repeatedly. That's why if you are a single here and you are yet to be married, I congratulate you that you are here. Because the choice of spouse that you make may make or mar your career, your life entirely. So if you are yet to make that decision, think properly about what do you want for your career, what do you want as a life, and let's figure that into your choice of partner. If you are going to be an academia, I've been here, it's been 3 days. Somebody needs to hold forth at home. Unfortunately, I don't have who will hold forth for me at this particular moment because my husband is also away somewhere. Now I turn to the children. How have I raised them? Can they stand alone without both parents? Unfortunately, I have 2 older male children. And we're in a patriarchal society where it is believed that male children are raised not to do some certain tasks at home. The children cannot cook. As a mother, you raise your children not to cook, your male children. You've raised them not to be able to cook. You raised them not to be able to sweep. You've raised them not to be able to do any house chores. All you raise them to do are to fetch money. Before they begin to bring you that money, they need to serve back too. So as a woman in academia, you must understand what obstacles the culture puts before you. You have to work against that obstacle. The obstacle is that we are in a patriarchal society. When you are raising your children, raise them in a dual way, both way, so that either way the society tends towards the children will fit in. So as an academia and a woman in academics, it is going to help your career.
I have floor for the magenta. Please keep your comments brief.
Yes.
Only have 10 more minutes.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Dr. Augusta Diala from Lee City University. I will be brief. My own contribution is I'm going to look at the area of how do we solve this, the solution to these problems, because it's like everybody here has one kind of experience or the other concerning sexual harassment. Either you recognize it or not, but then is my own solution to it is like the law in Nigeria. It seems that Africa, I will use Nigeria in particular, but it seems that there is no law that always hold these men responsible. Because each time we do it, they do this. Women, it's not that some of the women don't recognize this, they are being harassed, but they're afraid to go. If you go, what next? Nothing happens. There is no law that's standing for them. In fact, the culture makes it worse because it's assumed the women should not be heard, or they shouldn't talk, or you will get ashamed. Nobody will marry you coming from Eastern background. I'm an Igbo. So some of them, you don't talk, you don't raise your voice. You are afraid you might not be married. Nobody marries you. You won't do this or that. So sometimes those two things, the law, there's no strong law that holds the men responsible, especially even in the schools. Then secondly, the culture of what we have. The men always have the upper hand when it comes to this. So I'm advocating, maybe we keep on talking, maybe the government or whoever that is responsible, and there might be a strong law to hold them responsible. Again, culture, through orientation, going some of the genders that can go to village trying to orientate the women, even they should come out, talk through our noise online and whatever. It's not that this man doesn't obey, but just that in other climes, when they travel, they obey all these laws, but yeah, they don't. That is the problem I have. It's not that they don't know. So that is my own contribution. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Do you mind if I speak when I'm standing? You don't mind. I think we are over-trivializing the discussion on sexual harassment. The mere fact that it has dominated a discussion on mentorship and on women in the in the academia means it is a problem, okay? So it is a very big problem. This problem can be resolved through two ways. There's what is behavioral, which is the individual, and all I'm hearing is I did this, don't do this, and don't do that. Then pay the price for excessive and patriarchal masculine behavior. For example, those of us who are here in academic leadership and are female, how have we pushed to change the norms in our institutions to make them better for women? Do we have safeguarding policies? Have we tried to push for them? Do we have anti-sexual harassment policies? What have you done with when you've heard there is a sexual harassment case somewhere? In Makerere University, it's not just enough to say, I did not do this and I don't do this and I'll say no to that. You have a burden to protect and a duty and a responsibility
to protect other females. So that's why we push for these policies in as much as individually we are being actually taken down. But what have we learned? That the sexual harassers, because it's a power relational game, they will look for the most vulnerable women. They will look for the isolated ones. If they are students, they pick those who are from upcountry, who look isolated. If it's academics, they go for the younger ones, and they do all those kinds of things. So we shall not only go for the harasser, we also go for those who are in charge of overseeing responsibility. So these females who are supposed to be academic coordinators and they don't care because that professor is too powerful for them, be also taken down. So let's make academic institutions work for females, not just for us, because you're powerful is not enough. Make it work for the less powerful woman. Thank you. Okay. And then that blaming women, but then the problem of men here is not because we raise them badly. Thank you. When people steal from government, they're imprisoned. They don't say who is the father, who is the mother who raised them. When people arrest, they are taken. So even this one, we should stop blaming women. Thank you. Let's make laws that work. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. Please, I'm going to be very, very brief. Yes, what we're talking about, mentor, that I have the right to shout, I have the right to attack, I have the right to fight back. So that little thing that she told me helped me, and it continued to help me. So after that, I now decided that from there on, I will continue to fight for my fellow women, even for little child, until they grow up. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's been an insightful session so far. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, it's been an insightful session so far, but I actually want to ask, because she was talking about creating a platform to support women. So, but what about women that are conspirators? Like they actually, maybe they are silent. Yeah, they are silent about it because of what they gain, probably material things, or they just indulge in stuff like that. And how do we filter them out from, especially when you create a platform like that, how do you filter them out of this thing? So that's just my question.
Well, the one more than we promise you'll ask, you'll be back.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I will be very brief. My question is, yes, I'll be very brief. My question is, why are we in the minority, especially in the academia? Why are we in the minority always? I work in this institution. In fact, this is the boardroom. I work in this faculty. If you look at these pictures, if you look at these pictures on the wall, how many women can you see? It's not like they have not been there. So we need to look into this issue. The fact that we continue to flog this issue, and it has been a topic for discussion over the years. It means something is wrong, and we need to address it.
Because so not in the minority. There's more women than there are.
Yes, in the world there are more women than men. But the men seem to be at the top and deciding what happens, who comes in and who doesn't come in. When it's time for employment, you discover that among the people that will interview you, if there are 5, you just find only 1 woman. And that is not right. That has always been the problem. So we need to look into it. So we need to look into it. Another thing I think is that
Someone is speaking, please.
So another thing we need to note is that we need to look inward. Are we the problem? Are we the problem to ourselves? So what I'm saying, so I round up by saying that please let this be an assignment we should all take home so that when we come back here next year, we will have better suggestions and solutions to this problem. Thank you.
We have time for one more comment. I wish we could talk all day.
When was the lecture?
Wherever you are.
Hey. I think my name is Jokiwa Mai from Kenya. My name is Jokiwa Mai, and I am a lecturer in Kenya. So I just want to say, first of all, this is a very important conversation. And you've heard what Professor Sally has said. Structurally, I'm talking about moving forward now, how we need to move forward, because this is very prevalent. Structurally, the policies, sexual harassment policy, safeguarding policy, you have to, whether you get yourselves as a network, as women academics, together and champion for that. At an individual level, first, what is sexual harassment? Is unwanted conduct. Unwanted conduct, whether it is sexual, especially sexually unwanted conduct, right? It could be verbal, somebody could write something to you, something could do something, horrible, and there, so that, all those. And I'm very sorry also for the people who have been harassed. It was very heartbreaking to listen to the stories. All of us studied in African universities, And for the men who are here, so first you need to know unwanted conduct. So if someone sends you a text, if someone invites you for dinner and you don't want it, but the next thing you must do, you must say, I don't want. So you have to communicate, you do not give consent to this, and clearly, right? So if somebody wants you, you have to text, and also, and make sure when somebody starts harassing you verbally, it is good they convert it to text so that you have evidence. Yeah. So if they start talking to you, tell them text, WhatsApp, so that you have evidence. And in that evidence, you can use that. And I hope, make sure also all our universities have an office to report sexual harassment. So those are the things you can get together and organize so that you start reporting. So the academics need to mix, and then you have to report, and then you have to keep reporting, because we are our sisters keepers, and never forget that. And there's nothing like women are their worst enemies. That is what patriarchy tells us, so that it can divide us. And all those men who are busy behind there saying that some of them are good, they were gone. Those men saying that, it's these women who harass us. You are in a position of power. Yeah, even me as an academic, I've been harassed by men, diplomats who come to my class. But I have to tell them, I'm the one in charge here. I don't care who you are. I'm the one in charge. So the person who is in charge is in a position of power. So you can't be harassed by somebody, exactly, who is lower than you. So don't agree to that lie men keep peddling, that, they want this. You are free to wear what you want. You who is an old man, why are you seeing sex in your daughter? Thank you. I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we have, our time is up for this panel.
Sorry, can I be allowed a few minutes? Especially on this sexual harassment, as a senior member of the faculty. Because many of the examples are from Nigeria, and I have a few things to say. Just a minute or two, please. I plead.
I have to beg the technology people.
Okay.
Because the next session is coming in the room, but if you can be brief, we can allow it.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. On sexual harassment, I think I'm saying this with a sense of responsibility. I think, but I think it's been exaggerated in this room today. And I'm saying this because The various exam, almost everybody that has spoken has presented herself as a victim. What have you done? There are laws against harassment in all universities. Students never speak up. Even when you tell them, I'm teaching a particular course, teaching a course with a male lecturer, a much younger male lecturer, interestingly, a former student in the department who is sexually harassing students, and I've pleaded with them to come out in the open, they have refused. They just say this behind one's back. Open your, come out in the open, record what you can record, document what you can document. Many of them play along. Many students play along because they are weak or because they think they will gain some things. And this is not to say.
I remember